What's up, J Fusion fans? This is Philip, and welcome back to another video. So this week we don't have any superhero time review because they were on break for the new year. So superhero time reviews will regularly return by next week, but that doesn't mean we have nothing to talk about today. So I decided to review Ultraman Z. Now, I have made a review video of Ultraman Z, but it was just halfway into the series, and now I've decided to make a video reviewing the show in its entirety from start to finish, which I guess makes it easier than just, picking up where we last left off. But I think that's also a good thing, especially for those who haven't seen the previous video. So, before we begin, as always, I would like to remind everyone that these videos, by the way, are not intended for viewers under the age of 13, and probably some spoilers just in case anyone hasn't even started watching Ultraman Z yet. I mean, it's just 25 episodes. What are you doing? It's an easy binge watch. So, nonetheless, with that said, let's move on to the actual review. So, first off, let me talk about the relationship between Haruki and Zet. Now, this is actually an interesting aspect because for most of Ultraman's history, the host and the Ultraman don't usually talk to each other that much. Probably in the first episode where the Ultraman finds its host, who is most likely the main protagonist, and talks to them just a little bit. Like, I'm going to need your body to in order to survive being on Earth, and I'm also going to revive you because you're most likely dead or too injured to survive anyway, that kind of thing. So instead of just, being like contractually obligated, like you have this obligation to save the world because this superhero alien is tied to you. We see more than that with Zet and Haruki. Of course, they still have that aspect. They still are like bound together in order to survive, like both of them actually. But they quickly become friends, and of course, we see that progress throughout the entirety of the series. Now, as for their relationship, it's definitely far from perfect. They've had some arguments, especially during the time when Haruki had doubts within himself. When he realized that the monsters that he defeated and destroyed, for the most part, those were just monsters that acted like any other animal, like doing what they can to survive, and then Ultraman Z, maybe, by extension, Haruki. So he comes in and saves the day. For the humans, yes, but, he actually ends up destroying a monster that apparently isn't evil at all, It's just acting on instinct and doing what it can to survive. So, of course, Ultraman Z and Haruki's relationship were on the rocks at that point. But of course, Haruki eventually realizes that he has to fight for whatever he can protect. So that's a good realization for Haruki, I guess. So yeah, like this conversation, between the Ultraman and the host doesn't really happen a lot. Probably the last time we had that, well, was the previous installment, which was Ultraman Taiga. But again, for most of like Ultraman's history, especially within the Showa era. So that doesn't happen a lot. But again, it actually became a focal point, again, kind of similar to how Ultraman Taiga did it. So, uh, it's so interesting, the relationship between Haruki and Zed. It came to a point that Haruki even decides to leave Earth and go with Zed to planet M78 to learn more, perhaps, or to probably continue their mission. Although technically they could have parted ways at that point, but yeah. So here's another thing that's rare about Ultraman Z. So Haruki is one of the rare Ultraman hosts that actually decided to leave Earth and go with his Ultra partner way into the stars. So I think a couple of examples I could mention would be Ultraman Dyna, and in a way, I guess Ultraman Cosmos. So they kept their ultra powers, but I guess Dyna is someone that I do remember best because in the final episode of Ultraman Dyna, Shin Asuka decides to go to space with Ultraman Dyna. So that's probably how he ended up traveling through space in Ultraman Saga, which came many years later. So, yeah, if there's any sequel or spin-off that would involve Haruki and Zed, and I think there's going to be some coming soon, I think. So it would be interesting it would be interesting to see what kind of adventures Zet and Haruki would have on planet M78. So that one we can look forward to in the future. So the next aspect of Ultraman Z that I would like to talk about would be the mechs, because the mechs are kind of defining factor in the show. Like, part of Ultraman Z was the mech. So, of course, I think I mentioned it in the previous video. So, it's been quite a while since we had actual machines used by whatever organization or whatever force is fighting, the kaiju. In this case, was storage. So, the last time that I've actually seen specialized fighter jets or things like that actually fought monsters or kaiju was, I think, back in Ultraman X. Now, Ultraman Orb, I think, had something going for it with the VTOL, but VTOL didn't really have like any machines that actually fought monsters. But yeah, I think the last one was actually Ultraman X in that regard. And everything else, if there was like an organization intended to fight aliens, monsters, and such, they did not have any specialized jets or machines. Now, the fact that Ultraman Z, or storage rather, uses machines to fight monsters, now it could be seen as something that is probably taken out of the Super Sentai textbook, but no, Tsubaraya is no stranger to to using mechs themselves, with the best example being Gridman, which, by the way, is getting some sort of a sequel coming soon in the form of Dyna Zenon. So again, with Gridman, you see an Ultraman-esque superhero, and then you also have a giant robot fighting alongside him, and they actually combine. So, with that, of course, a lot of the robots that were used by Storage were based on kaiju, but one thing that I would love to see, if ever this concept gets used again in a future Ultraman installment, in a future Ultraman series, I actually would like to see more, you know, robots that look like actual mechs, like heroic mechs, and not just kaiju-ish uh, ones. So again, I understand the homage to classic kaiju with the Sevanger, Wyndham, and King Joe Storage Custom. Those were absolutely amazing. And Ultroid Zero, obviously, reused Ultraman Zero with armor. So yeah, those are nice. Don't get me wrong, but again, I would like to see something that's more original, but or at least something that's more similar to the Gridman designs, for their mechs with the Xenon things. But yeah, it's definitely a nice touch right there. So maybe some more things that I want to talk about in regards to Ultraman Z. Probably the characters. So the characters were generally amazing. Now for the villains, well, Celebro, well, obviously the guy he possessed. I kind of feel sorry for him. He was the bad guy because he didn't want to. So but nonetheless, Celebro was a very tricky individual. I would say that, in the very least. So, an interesting aspect here. So, the return of Juglus Juggler. So, Juglus Juggler, as we know, he was the villain in Ultraman Orb, but after that, he basically became an anti-hero. But as the show progresses, especially within the final arcs of Ultraman Z, he practically leaves behind his anti-hero ways and becomes full-on hero. Well, sure, like, he still acts like a creep most of the time, but nonetheless, he's someone that you could actually like, you know and he was already an iconic villain, but giving him a redemption arc, especially here, I mean, he was already an anti-hero in between Ultraman Orb and Ultraman Z, but now he's transitioned to full on hero, I think, and that's really good. you know I don't mind if his transformation still is that monstrous, you know, if his transformation still looks monstrous, but again, how he uses it is the point. He doesn't have to become an Ultraman himself. He is plenty powerful on his own, even just by transforming into other kaiju, but he uses it to fight for good. And that he did in this show. So that one I absolutely liked. So another aspect would be, well, for the ladies, well, Yuka as the tech genius. So yeah, there are two types of women. So the strong female character and the bubbly female character. Again, classic, I think. Not really something that is very original to the show. I mean, there have been other Ultraman that had at least two females on the team that had these kind of personalities. So, one thing I noticed, so there's been a building up to a potential relationship between Haruki and Yoko. And that's, especially evident in the later arcs going into the final episode. So I would have liked to see more, between them, but Haruki chose to go to the stars. He chose to go to M17, and probably, when he returns, who knows? But the door has already been opened. The floodgates have been opened for ships, for the ship to set sail, and it's very interesting. Again, Ultraman is again, well, we know it's a kids show, and there's definitely not a lot of emphasis on romantic relationships. I think the last Ultraman that I've seen that definitely has a heavy emphasis on romance would be Ultraman Tiga, especially in the Ultraman Tiga movie. Oh boy, like they really went like full love story, I think. But otherwise, the rest of the Ultraman shows don't really have a lot going on in terms of romance. Again, it's a kid show. Kids don't really care that much about romantic scenes, so I guess it's more of a fan service for the more mature viewers. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's how I saw it. So, anyways, it was really nice, and I found it really cute. So like it just squealing every time it happened. So, yeah, I admit I kind of like that part. So basically, I'm done with this review. So I think I've said everything that I thought I needed to say. Or maybe not, because I just remembered Deku, aka Ultraman G. Now, I'm not saying that his appearance was really bad, but it just felt underwhelming. Sure, he got a power up, but when his G, his original transformation device, was restored, he just basically gave up his medals that he could use he could use into transforming into Geed Rising, which was really really badass. I would have loved to see more of it. I would love to see it used more, and I think it appeared only twice in the show, which is sad considering how awesome it was. And I think it was much better. I really liked it much better than Jeed's supposed final form. So Jeed Rising was kind of a letdown in that regard. I mean, it wasn't bad, it just wasn't used a lot. Like I wanted more of that. So yeah, that's the only part of the show that I really felt disappointed in. So yeah, okay, now I have said everything, I think. But yeah, that's all for this review of Ultraman Z, the full review. Now, if I were to give Ultraman Z rating, I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. Like, there were some parts that I really didn't like so much. But overall, it was a really good start for the Reiwa era Ultraman series. So, yeah, it's definitely a good start for Ultraman in this new era. I know Taiga was supposed to be a Reiwa era Ultraman, but things happened. But we still got a really good start for the Reiwa era with this franchise. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. As always, please do leave a like on this video. do comment what you think about Ultraman Z as a whole, and do share this video with your friends, please, and subscribe, and don't forget that notification bell so you get the latest from JE Fusion. This has been Philip, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!